Okay. Now, whenever we are writing this cookbook, yeah, there might be the cases where you might have written this cookbook only for Ubuntu and Red Hat. Only for Ubuntu and Red Hat. If the user tries to run it on some other operating system, something like OpenSUSE, right? Some other Linux flavor like Kali Linux. There are many Linuxes in the world right now, right? They try to run it on that. So you, whenever you are trying to write this stuff, you are very clear that your cookbook was basically developed for Ubuntu and Red Hat, right? So when the user tries to run it on a different platform, it is your responsibility to tell that this cookbook was not intended to run on the environment which you are writing. So for example, if I take this cookbook and try to run it on Windows, will it work? No, this was not designed for Windows actually, right? So those kind of things can happen, right? The user might probably add it thinking that it might work for every Linux machine. So how do I bail out? How do I bail out? Basically saying that if it is not intended, how do I fail it? Right? Let us see. Let me directly. Yeah, this was a better thing to visualize. Are you seeing this? He has written an error saying that raise this message if the platform is Windows. Yeah. So this is something which you have to done, which has to be done every time, and this has to be done in your default.rb file. So for example, if I have written this, I'll go to the default.rb. This cookbook is supposed to work on what? Ubuntu and Red Hat. So can I write a condition like this? If, okay, node of platform is equals to Ubuntu. Okay, I'm okay with Ubuntu, right? Or, right, if node of platform is equals to Red Hat, right? And then I'll write else statement. In the else statement, I'll say that I want to raise. What is my error? Raising an error saying that this cookbook is supported only on Ubuntu and Red Hat platforms. If you have restriction on version saying that you have written a cookbook only on Ubuntu 14.04, then your if condition might be right. If node of platform is equal to Ubuntu and node of platform version is equal to 14.04, right? You have to ensure that your cookbook, whatever you are writing, should work only on a supported platform. You cannot write a cookbook probably on all the platforms, right? So this is a definite stuff which you need to always do. Now, whenever we are satisfying the condition, I'll include this, right? Now what happens is when I try to run this cookbook in Windows, it will directly bail out. It will fail saying that this cookbook is not intended for Windows. It has supposed to be run on only Ubuntu and Red Hat. Am I clear on this? You can use raise statements or you can use fail statements, right? So anything is fine. Basically what they do is they stop the chef client execution. They stop the chef client executions. Am I clear on this? So now, which is good. And or is a binary operator, right? Yes. whatever it is. So I think we have to use this one, or yeah, even this works, but whatever it is, this is also fine. Yeah. So if any of these statements is true, your cookbook will execute, but if it is not true, your cookbook will fail its execution. Now to try this in your test kitchen, you might write a platform called as Windows. So in a platform called as Windows, what happens? Your kitchen will try to create a Windows machine and will try to run this cookbook, and this cookbook will fail, saying that this cookbook is designed to run on Ubuntu and Red Hat, whereas where you are trying to run is a Windows machine or any platform for that matter. So for example, you have written a cookbook which has to run only on Ubuntu 16.04. Make it explicit. Don't leave it. Don't expect that the user of your cookbook will be adding items to the run list expecting that he knows how to run it. Am I clear on that? Yes. So now are we clear with the test versions of test kitchen using Vagrant and AWS? At least one of them is working for you. At least one of them. I'm not expecting that for everyone all the two work, right? For that you need to have a right set of softwares, right? Okay. Now I might have messed up something. Okay, fine then. So what we'll do right now is we'll go on by correcting the stuff, right? Whenever something goes wrong in Chef, how do you do that? Okay, so remember we had some problematic areas in lamp stack. Okay, now fine, I am not interested in kitchen.yml, but I am interested in my flow. Okay, over here also I'll write that statement. If node of platform is equal to Ubuntu or node of platform is equal to Red Hat, then only you run this. On other platforms, please fail this, because the platforms which I am supporting is only Ubuntu and Red Hat. Am I clear on that? Okay. On EC2 it is giving an error and I'm raising an issue. Hari, I think for you everything is giving an issue. It is better that you just see what you are trying to do, because you are the only person who get problem on everything, రైట్. మీకు కూడా నాలాగా అబాకిలు అయి ఉంటారు. నేనేం మొదలెట్టినా పని అవదు, సగంలో ఆగిపోద్ది, రైట్. ఒకసారి జ్యోతిష్యుని కలుద్దాం ఇద్దరం అని. ఓకే, ఫైన్ దెన్. సో వాట్ విల్ డూ ఇస్, ఓకే, whenever you are trying to basically run this stuff, okay, there might be certain cases where you want to know, there might be errors, definitely there might be errors, but you want to know till which point is my cookbook running, right? So developers, if you see, whenever you are running some applications, they go to some log files and they see that okay, this much has happened and this much has not happened, right? By looking at the logs, they will tell you what is an error. Here also we are doing the dev job, so even it is our responsibility to log whatever we have done. So whenever you are writing, let me add one more best practice to it. So let me go ahead and discuss about something called as chef log. Are you seeing this log resource, right? And whenever we try to do anything, we try to log it, right? And are you seeing over here what is the log? Log has a name, and what is the other thing which the log has? Message, and then it has action. And in actions, what is it? You have only two simple actions: do nothing or do right. Do nothing or do right. Okay, so basically the other thing which we have is we have a message. It is always a good practice to write log after what you have done. So for example, before doing this, I might write something like log messages Okay, if you look at this message, defaults to name unless specified. So I'm okay with it. So I'll be writing saying that started execution of cookbook. All right. What is the level? Is it info or is it debug or whatever it is? Yeah, it could be information because it is a basic stuff. You are trying to tell that it is what it is. All right. And then your action should be the default action is right, but you can just basically say right. Yeah. So what is it I'm trying to do? Whenever I try to execute this cookbook, this will be the first message which I'll see. Am I clear on this? Right? And for example, whenever you want to run anything, please write this. Okay. So it might be boring activity because you are describing what you are doing. Yeah. So I write this. Okay. Something like this. Okay. Started. Okay. Or include recipe lamp colon colon Apache started. This need not be an information log. This could be a debug log. Yeah. And then you might write one more log over here which speaks about so now what we are trying to do is we are trying to log everything what we are trying to do. So in this case what basically happens is, all right, in this case basically what is that we are trying to do is we are trying to achieve, okay, detailed log for what we are doing rather than relying on chef logs. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to the kitchen.yml file. Okay, and I don't think so I have any Hyper-V machines. Let me cross check. Destroy చేశారు కదా, but let me cross check if there is any machine that is hanging in over here. No, yeah, it's not destroyed. Okay, so I have to execute the kitchen destroy statement first. So I'll open a PowerShell over here, and then I would say kitchen destroy first. So let me destroy whatever is existing and let us see how it works, whatever we have written. Yeah. Okay, I have written only for one file, but what I'm trying to tell is have a habit of doing this. Okay. So for example, even raise, that is a best practice. Log, best practice. Right. Whenever you're writing detailed information, put debug. Whenever you're writing the basic information, put it as info. Right. So whenever something goes wrong in your chef book, any chef cookbook, we are running our cookbook with what? Kitchen or kitchen converge minus L debug. Similarly, whenever when something fails in on the node, we can run something like sudo chef client minus L debug. We'll be getting the same messages, right? Whenever you want to enable debugging, you can do that. So whenever you do debug, what happens is you know what are your logs. You can look into that and saying that okay, this log was not appearing, so something has failed before that, right? So whenever you read the logs, whenever you are seeing the log saying that okay, now let us assume that something has failed. You are seeing a message called as started execution of cookbook. You are seeing a message of Apache started, but you are not seeing a message of Apache completed. So where could be the issue? Something which is happening include the recipe inside this recipe. In this recipe also you have log messages where you will write a log for everything. So is it not easy for you to find out where it has gone wrong, right? Or till which point what it has executed? This is a best practice. Not many people religiously follow this, but once you have a habit of doing this, right, it becomes very easy for you to find out where it has gone wrong. Am I clear on this? Right? For example, if you are reading the attribute values, you can write a log statement in debug saying that my attribute value is this. So for example, we use variables, right? Dollar package name, dollar package names, right? And for example, your if statement in attributes might be wrong. Before starting this cookbook, you can write a log statement saying that the following are the attributes that are loaded for this platform. Make a list of all of the attributes, show them. So whenever you are looking at that logs, you will come to know that, okay, man, so my attribute values are messed up. I might have messed up in my if condition because package name has to be Apache 2, but I am getting HTTPD. All right. So this is the best practice. Even if you don't follow, Chef will fail. But whenever you follow this, it is very easy for you to find out where it has gone. All right. Okay. Is the destroy finished? Ah, it's okay. There is one more easier way. You have deleted the machine, right? And whatever is there with respect to kitchen is in here. Okay. Now your kitchen will not know that there was some machine. Everything it will store in .kitchen folder. I've removed .kitchen folder and I've removed the machine. All right. And now let me execute kitchen list, and before that let me change my .kitchen .yml file. Okay. Satish is not around, is that? Later. Unnara. We get it right. And now I want to create the stuff. So I just do kitchen converge, and I'm not using -l debug. Yeah. Ah, spelling is wrong. Kitchen. See whether the log which we have written, which is with the info, is displaying or not, because the default log level is info, right? So we should see that started execution of that cookbook or whatever we have written. Yeah. But that happens once the virtual machine is created. Once you log in into that machine, when you execute sudo chef client, then the log start. Before that, you might be seeing logs of machine creation. Right. So we have discussed about two best practices today. Whenever you are trying to write a cookbook, ensure that you know where your cookbook has to work. You cannot write a cookbook which works everywhere. What is happening? The provider Hyper-V has requested back the machine. Default is reporting that it is unable to. Ah, okay. Run it as an administrator. It is not having enough privileges. When something goes wrong, how are you solving the issues? I have got one issue right now. That is something which I'm seeing for the first time in my life. So how will you solve it? Raise a DevOps issue straight away. Right? What are you doing to resolve this issue? So first thing is, are you seeing something in red there? And from our childhood, we have been taught that something in red is not good for us, right? Yeah. And if you have seen me, I have not read anything which was in green. I was interested in the color which is red, right? But even though, let us assume that you are looking at a notepad. In notepad, there is no color. Everything is black. All right. Even in that cases, if you see, there will be something called as error. Whenever any statement starts, it will have something called as error, right? And you will go to the last point of error, and that it might be too much messy. All right. So, for example, you open anything which has failed. For example, let me try to open. I don't have any log, but let me just open something. Okay. So let me assume that I'm in a 1,000 line, and in the 1,000 line I'm seeing that chef has failed. Okay. So now you tell me, how are you going to fix it? This is a 1,000 line in your logs. You have executed kitchen converge minus L debug, and in the line number 1,000 in the log file you are seeing this error saying that kitchen has failed or converge has failed or whatever it is. There is a failure message. Now you tell me, what are your steps? Because if you Google for that error, chef has failed is, yeah, it will fail for too many reasons. How you will come to know that what is the reason for my failure? What are you doing? ఏం చేస్తున్నారు? వస్తున్నాయి కదా మీకు ఎర్రర్స్ ఇలాంటి? Yes or no? If you go to the last line, it will say that converge has not happened because there was some failure, some error message. If you look at that error message, that is a common error message for any kind of failure. For syntax failure, same error. For everything, that is the same error. Now you tell me, how are you going to debug this? How are you going to find out what is the problem? ఏం చేస్తున్నారు? What is that you are trying to do? What you do when something like this happens? You need to is correct, but what you are doing is my intention. So whenever something goes wrong, there will be many lines with this error statements, right? Scroll to the top till when to the point where you see the first error line. From there, try to read what has happened. That is how you'll come to know what is the reason for failure. You don't do that. Many people don't do that. Error, baboy. Right? I said our job is like policeman's job. When every Hyderabad is secured, there are no murders happening, no thefts happening, no one will even remember police. But if someone kills someone, everyone blames police. Yes or no? Your job is also exactly the same. When deployments are happening, all the stuff is working, no one even appreciates DevOps engineers. But whenever something goes wrong, you will take all the blame. Right? You are paid to read logs. 60% of your salary is paid because you have a patience to read the logs, not because you know how to write chef. Yeah. And majority of the people don't have a patience to read it, because we might read the logs in different formats. Imagine that it is a chef failure. Tomorrow there is an application failure, but it is you who will tell whether it is an application failure or a deployment issue. For that, you have to read logs. I am seeing a issue saying that kitchen converge not happening. Fine, but what is the point where it has failed? Be specific about your error. For example, yesterday or couple of, I don't remember by face, but one of the, for one of, I think you, right? For you in the morning, something in Azure was not working. Yes. So it was not, it was trying to tell that we have just installed Azure CLI, it was not working. Right? I have not done any wonders. Basically, I have taken the error message, copied it into Google, and Google description error code says that this error will occur, okay, if your PowerShell execution policy is not allowing scripts to run. Then what I have done to fix that issue is I have just changed set execution policy to unrestricted, and everything started working. So it is not a fix which is important. It is important to know the root cause. And the problem which I am seeing repeatedly is I don't see people finding a root cause. Not finding a solution, absolutely fine. But at least when something is happening wrong in your system, find a root cause. నా దాంట్లో వర్కౌట్ లేదు, షెఫ్కి నా మీద కోపం, మాకు వాళ్ళకి ఆస్తి తగాదాలు ఉన్నాయి, మా కులానికి వాళ్ళ కులానికి పడదు. ఇదేం కాదు కదా, బికాస్ షెఫ్ ఈజ్ నాట్ ఎ హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్, రైట్? రైట్? అండ్ వై ద థింగ్స్ వర్క్ in my system, why not yours? Right? My system doesn't have any magical powers. And if you see, I don't carry my laptop also. I just come to the classroom, everything will be plugged in over here, and I start working on this. Yes or no? And why the things don't happen, there might be sometimes OS issues. For example, whenever you are trying to install Docker, and I have Windows Home Edition, Docker installation itself tells that I cannot install on a Home Edition. For that, that's not something which we cannot correct. But whenever you are seeing anything wrong, enable debug mode, go to the first line where you are seeing the errors, try to have a patience of reading the errors. నాకు ఇప్పుడు వరకు ఒక ఇష్యూలో కూడా ఎర్రర్ లాగ్ గురించి అనలేదు. Converge not happening, cookbook not creating. Good. Put -l debug. What is you have to just run the command with -l debug. And the other thing which people do in issues, let me speak about it because I am seeing issues. Okay, where is that? github.com/qtdevops/devops issues. పని చేయకపోతే రేస్ చేసేయండి, easiest thing to do. But from tomorrow onwards, I am going to close the issues where I don't see the decent description. See, read the thing over there. Kitchen converge on EC2 throwing error. Why? Didn't it like my face? Kitchen converge on EC2 throwing error because there might be something, right? Where is log here? Okay. Converge throws on Ubuntu node. Right? Everything throwing error everywhere. But there might be some reason why it is happening, right? Yes or no? Yeah. And for that, what is the easiest thing to be done? Kitchen converge -l debug. And for the God's sake, right? And for the heaven's sake, please don't copy the stuff like this. So by looking at this, can you tell me what is here? What is that bold content? What is that stuff? Why don't you upload your cookbook over here? Zip your cookbook, upload it over here with log files. The person who is going to resolve your issue cannot resolve. Okay? ఒకవేళ అతను రిజాల్వ్ చేయాలనుకుంటే अगर वो रिजॉल्व कर रहा है, ऐसा डिस्क्रिप्शन देख के वो पत्थर फेंक रहा है. ఇలాంటి డిస్క్రిప్షన్ చూసి ఇష్యూలు రిజాల్వ్ చేస్తున్నారంటే అతను రాళ్ళు ఇసురుతున్నాడు చీకట్లో, ఏదో ఒకటి తగులుద్ది. రైట్? there used to be a doctor when I was in childhood. You go with any disease, disprin and saline. Even today he is following the same practice. And an injection with 3 colors, which is a steroid. So for every disease, that's the same cure. So are we going to do the same thing? So where is the log file over here? Where is log? And now people try to help. I understand this gesture, but without log file, how are you helping your man? I cannot help. My reply to this question would be, show me your log file. Throwing on error, but what error? నాకు నచ్చలేదందా? When something goes wrong, it tells about you on an error, right? So what is that error? What is throwing an error? We are in DevOps on the second week of Chef, and if you are trying to tell generic terms, right? మీరు హాస్పిటల్కి వెళ్ళి ఒంట్లో బాగాలేదంటారా, తలనొప్పిగా ఉంది, కడుపులో నొప్పిగా ఉంది అంటారా? I am not feeling well is good for leave letter, not at doctor. Yes? Yes or no? So tomorrow onwards, if I don't see an issue without an error log, I don't worry about the stuff. I am closing this ticket because I am the owner, by the way. I am the bloody owner here. I can control anything, delete anything. Right? It was started by me. It is very easy for me to stop it also. Right? I am doing this because people take advantage of it. Where are the logs? From tomorrow onwards, no one will get a resolution until unless I see a log over here. And I want all of you to see these errors. ఎవరైతే ఇప్పటివరకు ఎర్రలు చూడలేదో, look at this error. Probably you might also be getting the same error. Right? You might get the resolution. That's the whole point of this. And unfortunately, what many people don't do is, are you seeing these issues? We have 25 issues, right? Yeah. Are you seeing closed? So there is already a database of 275 issues. The question which you are asking might already be answered. Please have a patience to search that stuff. Am I clear on this? Right? రేపటి నుండి chef is throwing error is your issue. or something else. Yeah, when it is throwing error, it will tell you I am throwing an error because I am unable to do this, right? So for example, it will throw an error saying that unable to create an EC2 machine because VPC ID is not matching security group ID. Because you might have given a security group which belongs to a different network and VPC which belongs to a different network. Yes. And in the earlier case, what was the issue? I am unable to do anything on Hyper-V because I don't have administrative privileges. If you read that error, you'll be able to resolve it. Okay? Am I clear on this? Tomorrow onwards, I am not seeing issues where you make generic statements. Right? I want specific stuff. Okay? And if you are able to, I'm not worried about whether you solve the issue or whether you don't solve the issue. My issue is not about this. Right? And no one is tracking me for this. Right? The whole point is, if you have an idea of knowing what is the problem, it is very easy to find the solution. Most of us don't find what is the problem, right? There was one more issue which was speaking about Nginx installation, right? And if you want to install anything in Ubuntu, you have to do update, and if you don't do update and try to install Git also, it will fail, because that is Ubuntu's behavior. That has nothing to do with your chef. So anything we start with Ubuntu, you would write that apt-get update statement. The reason why we write it is, in Ubuntu, that's how it works. We might not do the same thing on Red Hat because in Red Hat it is okay. Am I clear on this? So anytime, whenever you are seeing anything, I want you to go through these logs, right? So let us look at the logs. Now I'll not look into these logs also. Let me show you where to find the logs. Open .kitchen, and are you seeing kitchen vagrant and logs? Let me go into the logs. Are you seeing default ubuntu.16.log? Now, are you seeing the logs over here? Yes. Yeah, SSH connection has installed. Okay. Are you seeing the log statement? Started execution of cookbook. Is it something which we have written? Yes. So when something goes wrong, also I'll get these log messages. Have a habit of reading this. Whenever something goes wrong, at this place where you are seeing info, you will see something called as error over there, right? And error will not start from the first line. Error will start at some point in this file. Go to the first position where error has occurred and try to read something before that, because you understand the context, and try to address that. That is what I want you guys to do. And if you do that, for the people who are facing problems in Ansible, the same thing. In that case, whenever you are running Ansible, what is that you execute? Ansible hyphen playbook, some playbook's name, and put minus triple V. In Ansible, the way to create logs is hyphen V, double V, or triple V. So you'll get the logs. Read the logs. Have a patience of reading these logs. Without reading these logs, you cannot solve issues, right? So for the people who have raised those issues, I want you to look at these files, look into your error. You will be able to find the solution yourself. Even if you are unable to find it, upload this log file, upload cookbook in a special zip file. Don't copy paste, man. No, I'll not be able to understand by looking at it what is that you have written. Am I clear? So in Chef, any issues which you are raising with respect to anything, I want to see logs, and I want to see your whole cookbook, not your one single file. Am I clear on that? Wonderful. Now let us move ahead. Okay, I am not specific about you, Hari. I am specific. I'm telling it at a generic level, right? We know the practice right now, right? From now onwards, for the people who are answering the issues, if you don't see a cookbook, if you don't see logs file, reject the issue, saying that this issue will be rejected, because we want you to upload your cookbook and we want you to upload your log files. ఇలా లాగ్ ఫైల్స్ ఉండి దీంట్లో ఎర్రర్ ఉంటే కనపడదా మనకి? Yes or no? Right? So now let me do one mistake. I will intentionally do one mistake. All right. So I'll go to default. All right. Where is default.rb? Let me not do it in default.rb. Let me basically say that. something like package. I've written this, and I'm quite sure that it will not work on Ubuntu. In this case, I know the failure, but let me not worry about it. Let me just execute kitchen convert statement. I want you to understand this, because if you don't understand this, things are going to get complicated, because I am going to speak about something which is slightly complicated than what we discuss, right? So I know the reason why it will fail now, but let me not even worry about it. I want to show you where it will tell you that what has gone wrong. Yeah. Okay. It has failed, right? You can read into this, but the better way is go over here, get into this default log. Are you seeing errors? Yes. Go to the top of the file. In here, if you see, there will be colors over here. So this is the area where you are seeing something in red. See, what is it? Converge failed on this, right? SSH exited. Scroll down. Yeah. Error. Raising an exception. Scroll down. Kitchen failed. Okay. Try to read these errors. What is it saying? HTTP is a virtual package provided by multiple packages. You might explicitly select one. My first statement itself is trying to tell that you are trying to execute something called as HTTPD, which is something which I am unable to know. Go and read through this, all of these error statements. Right? At some point, you'll be able to make out what is the failure point it is trying to tell. That's it. That will try to tell you what is the error. And if you are seeing till that, before that 80th line, there is nothing in error. Till 79 lines, everything was good. Exactly from the 81st position is where the error start. So you have to focus on what has happened during that point. And now, if you scroll down, one more thing what you can do right now is, you can, if you are not understanding this, these statements are not giving you something conclusive, rerun this by saying -l debug, and in that, see where the error starts with. In that case, you will have more logs, which means it is easier for you to narrow down on your errors, right? So whenever you get errors, I want to see debug logs. Kitchen converge -l debug. When it is running, info is okay, but whenever it is failing, I want debug. Am I clear on this? Are you seeing this pattern? Anything which is in error, it starts, and at some point there might be everything which was working good, and so at some point your errors start. So start working from there. Am I clear on this? Yeah. Okay. In Chef, when errors happen, right, the cookbook's execution stops, right? But there might be certain cases where you can say that even if it is stopped, even if it is failed, I want to continue, right? So I'm not sure how many of you remember this, but try to write apt_update. Okay. Are you seeing ignore failure? If you put that as true, what happens is, even if that point has failed, your cookbook's execution won't stop. It will still continue. You have to just put that ignore failure as true. Am I clear? Right? But that is not a right way. But if you know that this might fail or might pass, it is not going to impact my deployment, then you can put that ignore failure equal to. Am I clear on this? Okay, good. So can we find out where it is failing at least, and why it is failing? Yeah, next step. But at least can we find out where it is failing now? Yeah, get into the .kitchen folder and look into logs, right? Okay, good. So let me correct the stuff, whatever I messed up. So this was not required, right? Okay. Now, there are some stuff. So when I said debug, it is not Visual Studio debugging where you click on F9 and all of that. Linux doesn't work that way. You will get error messages, and then you have to look at -debug. And if you want me to debug, I have shown you the way. Write the cookbook, put -l and debug and do it on your own, right? Because it takes one more 5 or 6 minutes for me to explain the stuff. You will get more logs and you have to go through the logs. Please do it on your own. Everyone is clear on what has to be done when the failure occurs? Yes? Okay. All right. So we have learned about two best practices today. One is we will be explicit about what platforms our cookbook is going to run on, and we will raise errors whenever we know that it is not suited. Our cookbook was not designed for it, and someone is trying to run our cookbook on that. Am I clear? Yes. Now let us focus about something called as templates. Remember, yesterday I have written a deploy var. Yes? Yes or no? And in deploy var, when I was writing this cookbook, there was a reason or there was a situation where I had to copy a file, right? And for that, what I have done was I have created a file. And if you remember, that file was exactly this Tomcat 7. And in this, what I have done is I have hard coded the values. Remember, I have hard coded the values. Yes. So something like 256 or 512 or whatever it is, right? Okay. Where is that? 512. Yeah. Let me change that, man. This will cause a failure, by the way. Okay. Anyway, I'll not run this. I'll skip this line. Either run చేయాలంటే if you want to run this line, your system should be more than 2 gigs. But we are running it on T2 micro, so it will fail always because memory might not be sufficient, because your operating system also takes some memory, and you are giving a 512 MB to Tomcat, which might not be present in your system. So if you want to do this, you do this on your more GB or more configuration kind of a machine. I'll skip this step, it's okay. But do you remember this step? Yesterday we have written something called as cookbook underscore file, and then we have run this. But if I go to here in Tomcat 7, okay, so this was a place where I have basically taken this documentation, right? Installing some var file from somewhere. Yeah. Now if you see over here, it was just not this. There is one more file over here which is called as etc tomcat hyphen 7 users.xml, and in this XML there is a configuration which speaks about username and password. And I want to give this username and password, and username and password might change always, right? I might like the same thing, you might like some other username and some other password, right? So I'm creating a file, but the problem over here is my username might not be admin and my password might not be the password which you are seeing over here. I might be interested in giving admin and India at the rate 123 or admin at the rate 123 or something like that. So I want to change that usernames and passwords. But if I use file, I cannot do that. Yes or no? Because file is a static one. You have to copy the same file. Now the problem which I have is I have a file. In that file, 80 or 90% of the data is fixed, but only 10% is variable, and you need to change that values, right? So for that, what we do is we create something called as a template. We create something called as template, and in template what we do is we identify what are the areas which might change, and for that areas we might write expressions. So for example, let me not take a very huge example, let me take a very simple example. You want to print a message saying that hello and your friend's name over here. What is that you want to print? Your friend's name over here. And then you might want to say that, okay, something like, okay, and then yeah, you know your name, so let's assume that this is what this message you want to send it to thousands of people and you have thousands of friends. All right, so will you write this message 1,000 times, or will you write a message one time and change only the friend's name over there? Yes, if you remember, this concept was called as mail merge few years ago. Yeah, you create a template, a mail with a template, and in that you put some areas which might be changing from person to person. For example, if you go into any bank's birthday messages, they will be the same apart from your name, right? So you get Diwali wishes, you get the any wishes which you are getting on your machine, they are all templates, right? Because that file is same and only some portion of that file is changing. Yes or no? So to achieve this, every language might have its own way. So for example, if you are working in .NET, you might write something like 0. So the 0 you will replace it by any value, right? So if you are working in Ansible, if you remember, we have done something like this, right? Jinja templates, or Python is also the same thing, all right? Ansible basically picked up the Python stuff. So here you might have a variable called as friend underscore. So whenever you run this, what happens is, wherever it sees that section, it replaces that with whatever your friend's name which you have passed to this. Am I clear on this? Now we are going to do the same thing for the Tomcat users file. In Tomcat users file, what are the two things that we want to change? The value of the username and the value of the password. So what I'll do is I'll try to create a template. All right, and in this template I will try to write some expressions, right? So for every language there is some way to write this, right? In .NET there was one way, in Java there might be one way, and if you all remember, if you are writing C language, you might write percentages, right? And the percentages you will replace with a variable, with a string, all right? So every language has its own way. And whenever we create a template, what we create in a template is we create something called as ERB file, embedded Ruby file, all right? Just like that front name, in Chef also we have a particular syntax for that. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll Google for Chef templates. You can go to any Google page. It is not restricted. I generally prefer going to the original documentation because for me I'm used to it. All right. But for you, if you are finding this troublesome, it's absolutely fine. You can refer to some other stuff. Right. So this is all fine. Okay. No, not this. This is how to write the resource. That man. Okay, good. So here, if you are seeing over here, okay, you have some expressions, right? And see what is that we write in Ruby. We write something like, in the case of C, we were writing percentages. In the case of Ansible, we were writing double curly braces. In the case of embedded Ruby, or in the case of Chef, we write an expression something like friend underscore name. Simple. Yeah. So, and the places where you are seeing admin and password, you will replace that with this expression. And over here it is a variable, but for us we might have all of our variables defined where? In attributes. So I might write something like node of, and I'll go to my attributes file and I'll define something like default of front name equal to whatever your front name is. Is it difficult? You have understood the difference between a static file and this file? So in the earlier case, what used to happen? It used to copy the same file again and again. You copy it into multiple machines, it is the same file. Now what will happen? If I change the attribute value with a different front name, now it will try to create a different stuff. Now, if I want to apply the same concept, right, which you are seeing over here. So what is that I need to write? I'll bring in this expression. Yes, I'm just writing this block. Later on, I'll do it for the complete file. Okay. So I'll copy this. Okay. So assuming that I have attribute called as default of, okay, var deploy or deploy var, whatever it is, okay, of username. okay, equals to admin, right? These are my attributes, okay, and password equal to admin at the rate 123, assuming this is what my stuff is. Now what I'll come over here, I'll go to this embedded Ruby, and over here I will tell that this is percentage equals to and percentage, and to get that value, what is it I would write? Node of var deploy of, right? Is it very difficult thing to write? No, right? Copy it over here, and over here you might be writing for, and if you want to put for this roles also, so I have hard coded the roles, but you can put one more variable for the roles where you pass these values and then you replace it. Is it very difficult to do this activity? Yes. For any configuration files, you'll be creating something like this, and creating this is basically called as, or what we have written over here is called as template. The difference between template and a file is static in nature, whereas template might have some dynamic values. Clear? Yeah. So how do I create a template? No different, just like how you have created a file or how you have created any other thing. So chef generate template, right? Let us see the syntax, because that is what we have been doing. Okay, so what is it trying to tell? Chef generate template, path to the cookbook, and name of your template, right? So I'll just say that chef generate template, right? And what is the name of this file? Tomcat-users dot xml, and name of my template is this. Hmm. Because template is a much easier way. Find and replace is line in file, and you have to write regular expression based stuff. And whenever you are dealing with smaller things, that is good. But whenever you are dealing with configuration files, using find and replace is a risky affair, because what will happen if the schema changes tomorrow? Right? Configuration files, it is not good. But if you are dealing with MOTD, message of the day, yeah, use find and replace. So don't use, even here you have replace, because you have a whole Ruby over here. What you can do, read the file and replace the string. You can do that. But in configuration files, it is always suggested that don't use find and replace method, but rather use a template approach. Because today you might be changing only 2 values, tomorrow you might change 200 values. So you cannot write 200 find and replace a statement. So that's the whole idea. That's why you use it. For smaller things, if you want to change one line, okay, let us assume that you want to etc host file, you want to write one entry, and you don't do that generally, then it's okay to go with string find and replace. But if you are doing this again and again, it becomes difficult to manage. Yeah, that is maintainability. That comes under the maintainability aspects of how you write the stuff, right? Okay, now let us see what has happened over here. Are you seeing a new stuff which is added over here? Okay. Oh man, I messed it up. I have to do that where? In var deploy, right? Okay, whatever it is. ఓ ఫైల్ ఉన్నంత మాత్రం నష్టం ఏం జరగదు, మనం వాడకపోతే ఏమవుదు. Yeah. I am not used to this PowerShell. Whenever I am writing chef, I use Visual Studio Code's PowerShell itself. So I am always in the same folder. Yeah. But in the classroom, I cannot use that because it is very small area and difficult to concentrate. All right. Okay. Now see what has happened over here. Are you seeing a template? Yeah, in templates are using a file called as tomcat-users.xml.erb file, right? Over here what you do is you go to that server, you copy the whole tomcat-users.xml and copy the content over here. Right, remember cookbook underscore file, what is that we have done? We have logged in into that machine, downloaded that file, right? So here also we'll do the same thing, but I don't have a patience to do that right now. So what I'll do is, there might be some place where I have already done it. So let me go to github.com/a square slash chef zone. There will be something called as find over here, right? Yeah, find file. So what are the files name? Tomcat hyphen users dot xml dot er. Yeah, whatever it is, I'm blindly copying this file. Okay, so this is fine, man. This is something which we will write. Is it not the same expression which we have tried out? Yes. Okay. Okay. I'll create attributes with this name. Okay. Yeah, there is an error already over here. You have to write something not like this, but you have to write node is missing. I think this is something which I have intentionally done for the people to correct it. Okay. Fine. So you don't even worry about it. I am not going to do this. I am deleting this. Yeah. I will delete. I will basically take the content from our notepad. All right. We have written something like this, right? Yeah, let me take this line which we have written, come over here and paste it. Okay, and the other two attributes which we have defined over here, I'll try to use it in my attribute section. Simple. Whatever I have done, I've used the same thing. Now what is it I have to do? This file I have to copy into a certain location. Yes or no? Right. So for that, this cookbook underscore file, as I said, I am skipping this. Okay, I'm not interested in this anymore, because on T2 micro this will fail. We know that it will fail. Okay, okay. Now what I'll do over here is, after this, what is it I need to do? I need to copy this file. If you look at this documentation, right, and to copy this file, there is a resource called as template. For copying a cookbook and file, we had a resource called as cookbook underscore file. For copying template, we have a resource called as template. So in template, it will try to tell what is your destination path. Okay, I'll go to the documentation, and what is my destination path? At C. Yeah. So this is my destination path. What is my source file? What is my source file's name over here? Tomcat hyphen users. All right, just Tomcat man. Tomcat hyphen users dot xml dot erb. Done. So now what will happen is, it will create the file from our file, and while it is creating that file, there are two values which it has to replace. So it will replace that percentage equals to with the variables which you have defined, or with the attributes which you have defined, and it will copy the file on the other end. And after this, obviously I want to notify a restart. Shall we try till this point? Yes. Okay. Before that, let me see if the AWS configure works. AWS easy to. If the secret key and access key is not configured anyway, it is not going to work, right? So let me see whether it is working on. Ah, wonderful. You have these many machines in running state, is it? Stopped state. Okay. Okay then. So now I written this cookbook and I want to run this cookbook. So what is that I need to do? First thing is kitchen list. I will see what is my platform and how do I run this cookbook. Yeah. And there are certain things which I need to correct still. That's this nonsense. Let me remove all of this checks. I'm making it simple. I don't want to really complicate it. But whenever you are writing, I would like you to see what are the platforms which it is supported. All right. Yeah. Come on, man. So don't worry about chef failures. The more chef fails, the more you learn. Right. So yeah, it says the last state is converged. Right. Now I'll just say kitchen destroy. If it is running, I want to destroy it first. I'm not sure whether it was destroyed or not. I want to start from beginning because remember in the last time we have messed up with our what is that file? The Tomcat settings file where we have increased the maximum memory of Tomcat and all that. So I want to just get rid of that machine. I'll be creating a new machine. So what happens when I do kitchen converge now? A new EC2 machine is created. Yeah, wonderful. Now I'll try to execute the statement which is kitchen converge. I'm not worried about debug. I'll worry about the debug when something fails. When something fails, I'll be executing the statement saying that kitchen converge minus L debug because in that case I'll be coming to know what is an issue. All right. If you start the habit of looking at log files, right, your 60% of the errors which you get in DevOps will be resolved automatically. Not only Chef. Tomorrow, whenever we are learning, let us assume Jenkins, if something goes wrong, I'll look at Jenkins logs. Right? Have a habit of doing that. Logs are very much important because you people ask, right, what is real time? What is real time? The only thing which I'll tell in real time is logs because that is the only thing which will rescue you. Right, rest of all the things might change. You have done all of this in Java. You might join a company where they are using Swift and you use only Mac systems and they have hired you as a DevOps engineer. Now you tell me what is that you are going to do. You are using only Mac servers, no Linux, no Windows. This can happen and it has happened. In that case, the only thing that rescues you is logs. Is it copied? Are you seeing the content? It has replaced your file with admin and admin at the rate 123. And if you remember, this is what we have done. All right. Now let me get into the AWS. So for any individual cookbook which you are developing, is this the better way to develop? Yes. I think we are using Mumbai if I'm not wrong. Our kitchen file was redirected towards Mumbai, right? Yeah. For you, it might be the same region, but for me, the region is different. Okay. Okay. So, yes. Is it working? This is a Tomcat's homepage. All right. Okay. Now, let me look at attributes. All right. So, let us assume that Tomcat admin manager web app. I click on this. Then it asks for the username and password. And what is the password which you have given? Admin and am I into now? Did I set the password, username and password with Chef? Yes. Right. And if you want to check whether the deployment will happen or not, you can create a deployment from here also. Right. Now, to do the deployment, you have to copy a WAR file from some location to this web apps location. That's it. All right. So there is no need for you to do visually. We can add that stuff basically over here. So now I think somewhere in S3 we had game of life, right? On the do you remember where it is? Yeah, game of life.war file. Are you seeing this? Yeah. This file I want to copy into that server because I want to run a Java based application which is game of life.war. Right. And to deploy any application, what I need to do is I need to know where is web apps. Where is web apps folder? Now let me go into this documentation. Okay. It says etc tomcat access the web interface, right? And this is what you have. You can deploy the files from here. I don't want to deploy files from UI. I want to do it from CLI. So shall I log in into that machine and see where that web apps folders location is? Yeah. So how do I log in? So I'll basically click on connect. Yes. And yesterday we have seen that in Chef, whenever it is working on anything, it goes into dot kitchen. And are using any PEM file over here? Yes. So I'll do git bash here. Okay. And the only thing which I might need to change is the PEM's name because PEM's name which it gives and which it uses might be different. So, right? Good. Now, what is the folder? CD var lib tomcat 7. So this is the folder where I need to copy the file somewhere from internet. If I have to copy the file from my local stuff, right, I would have used cookbook underscore file. But the problem is this file is not present in my cookbook, but it is present in some other location, which is a HTTP based location, right? So in that case, how do I download basically something? So what is the Linux command for this? wget or curl, right? So you can basically Google something like this. Okay, wget in chef. What is happening? Just like how Ansible we used to search any Linux command in chef, right? So it is trying to tell that you can use a resource called as remote underscore file resource. And if you get into this remote underscore file resource, what he tries to tell is you can use this remote underscore file resource to download any content from web into your local, into your node. So is this not what I am trying to do? Yes. So if you see the remote file syntax, remote file, where do you want to copy this file and what is the source? Right. So now let me go ahead. I'll go into this tomcat and I will say remote underscore file. And what is the path of the file? Var lib tomcat 7 hyphen web apps hyphen game of life dot, right? What is the source? Source is the URL where you are trying to download this file from, and the URL where I'm trying to download this file is from here. So I'll copy this link and I'll paste it over here. Not interested in all of this stuff. I do this, and even after this I want to restart. Even if you have restarted multiple times, if you don't try it immediately, it will try to do restart only once. So don't worry about it is trying to restart these many times. But if you put colon immediately, it will be immediately restart. It will be doing the restart immediately. Otherwise, it will do multiple things and consolidate all the restarts, and it will do at the once, because that is by default the action over there is delayed. Right? If you want immediately, put one more comma after notifies and put colon immediately. Right? Okay. Now let me come out of this. Yes. And what is the easiest thing which I can do now? Kitchen. If everything goes fine, now basically I have taken a Ubuntu machine, installed Tomcat, right, and configured some Tomcat based configurations, and I have tried to deploy a Java based application which was developed by some other one. So let us assume that this is gameoflife.war, right? We don't know how to build this war, but someone gives you this war file. We will learn how to build this when we learn Jenkins, right? When we learn Maven. But assume that someone has given you that file. He is trying to tell that this file will always be placed in some internet location. Now, if I give you that, is it not very difficult? Is it difficult for us to do the deployment? Right? So, yeah, let us see. So it says it is done. Now, since we have not deleted the machine, I think this will still hold good. Yeah. And now over here, you can just say slash game of life. And are you seeing some Java based application being hosted? Yes. Was it really a difficult journey? No. Right? Tomorrow you might not be using Tomcat server, you might be using JBoss server. It doesn't matter. Right? Now, if I ask you to install something in Node.js, it is not Node.js what you need to know. It is something which you need to know is what is manual way of installing Node.js. If you don't know that, you cannot survive. Python Django application, wonderful. Can you do it on the command line? First, do that. You can do any deployment as long as you know the command line way, because for every command line way you are finding a resource, right? Exactly, this is the thing. This is how the stuff works. And then we write the recipes in an order, and then we attach it to our cookbook. Is our cookbook ready now? Is it doing the deployment? Yes. Looking good. So shall we try this stuff on uploading this cookbook to the server now? And now if you see, I have a cookbook version which is first version, and it is doing the complete deployment. But if I have tried directly on the cookbook server, I might have changed the versions again and again. Yes. Okay. So what I'll do is, now I'll go over here. I'll go to my metadata.rb, and I will give the major version. I will tell that I'm not interested in all of this stuff, but I am giving you a version 1.0.0 because I have given something to work on. 0 dot something is something which doesn't work. You are still trying, but one is a major version, right? And then you try to tell that maintainer is qt, the stuff is qt devops at gmail.com. And if you want to raise issues, okay, you can raise the issues of this over here. Right? And what is your source URL? My source URL is something like this. Okay. Now what is happening? Okay, we have written a cookbook and we have a confidence and we are giving all of our information. If you remember, we never used to do this earlier. I have written a cookbook and know that it works on Ubuntu. I'm publishing it. Yes, and then you can give a release to your team saying that I have written a cookbook with a version 1.00 which runs on Ubuntu. I'll give the other version which runs on Red Hat now. So, are you getting the whole point? We give the cookbooks, confident cookbooks, not the cookbooks which don't work, which have corner scenarios, because we have done all the testing possible. Okay, good. Now, one thing that is left to be done is just books. What is a better way? Remember our initial days? We used to write a cookbook, we used to upload the cookbook, we used to do chef client. It might fail, it might pass. Whenever it fails, new version. Now we are not getting into all of that nonsense. Your cookbook, which is uploaded to the chef server, is a working cookbook, and you know that because you have tested it. Am I clear on this? Right? So, what is the what do you think is a better way now? Is this or the earlier way? Now I can confidently apply this cookbook into run list of any number of Ubuntu machines. Yes or no? Yes. So that's how I want you to approach the any cookbook development. Am I clear on this? So individual cookbook development. Do we know the work? Do we know the workflow now? We take the use case. We try to get the manual Linux steps, and for every manual Linux steps, we will try to convert them into chef resources, right? And we complete our cookbook. We test our cookbook in kitchen. When everything is working, the valid version will upload to the. So wonderful. So is this looking good now? Yeah. Okay. Now let us basically get into our chef server, manage.chef.io. We'll be installing our own chef server. Don't worry. But that is something which we need to do eventually. I'm not sure whether I still have those machines. ఆ machines ఉన్నాయా తీసామమ్మా లేవా ఉన్నాయా remember we used to have one machine where we have uploaded bootstrapped the Ubuntu and a Red Hat machine. Yeah, so node 1, if I'm not wrong, is a Ubuntu machine. Now when I am working on production servers, I'm confident now. So I don't see any problems because I know I have exactly whatever this machine is. I have tested that machine in kitchen. So the chances of failure are very less, but they can still happen. I'm not saying that failures won't happen. They might, but the chances are very less, right? But if you write immature cookbooks and every time you upload, the chances of them getting failed are too much high. Okay. Now we have wonderful. The stuff is done. Now let me get into this. We know this is a node, and what are the steps? Let us understand the steps. Every time I have to, if I change something, I basically need to modify my run list. Yeah, and then let us assume that this is run list. So you need to add every cookbook to your run list. This is the first problem which you are seeing. Yeah, I save my run list. Okay. Now let us see what happens on this machine. So for that, I'll click on connect. I get into the downloads. I'm not sure whether I still have these files. Teachana? Oh man. Yesterday I've written some chef's PowerShell script to delete all the files. Unfortunately, I don't have this. Cheflab.pem. That fingerprint will not help you in anything because you don't have a password file. But let me see if I have copied this to somewhere else. No, I've lost the connection, man. I don't want to do bootstrap. You do it on your machine, or you wait for half an hour. You will see the next stuff happening. Chef repo lo copy chesana. Copy chesunte bound. I'm not sure. C drive. Or let me do this. Chef starter. Bootstrap చేసేటప్పుడు కాపీ చేసి ఉంటాను కదా. No, I don't have a PEM file. I've deleted it by accident, so I cannot log in into that machine. So those machines don't make sense also. I have to delete them. Okay, but it will take some time. If you wait for the next half an hour, whenever the convergence happens, you can basically, what do you say, you can see your game of life on that server also, right? Yesterday or today in the morning itself, the whole stuff was done. I have written some PowerShell script to remove all the files which are greater than 100,000 bytes, and PEM file is certainly greater than 1000 bytes. So that's why it might have been deleted. My bad. I can't do anything right now. Yeah, there is no way to recover that. I can't do it. But this is something which you can do on your own. I'm really not worried about whether I'm not able to show this or not, because we have already seen it working. Okay, now. So now if you see, are my cookbooks stable now? Yes, better than what they were earlier. Yeah. So this is how you develop individual cookbook. Yeah. Now what we'll do is, this will, yeah, this is a good way in developing cookbook. But generally you don't play with one cookbook, right? In your application deployments, you generally don't play with one cookbooks. You play with multiple cookbooks. So how do you handle them? So in that process, what we will try to do is, let us try to define two important features of Chef, which are roles and environments. Now for the people who are working on Chef, right, get into this github.com/a square zone, and in that you will have Chef zone, and in Chef zone, if I am not wrong, workbooks, wonderful, yes, and then you have workbooks.md file. Go over here, you have many scenarios. You can do all of this from Chef, right? So the first thing is deploying Node.js app. The second thing is deploying HA proxy for Tomcat based web application. Here you will have manual steps. Try doing at least two. All right. Whenever you are doing Ansible, whenever you are doing Chef, I want you to try at least 2 or 3 things over here, because this is what you will tell in your, you can tell something like this in your interview, saying that I was working on a Java app and a Node.js based application. We are configuring load balancers. All right. So these are all the links which you have. Click on this, it will have documentations. Right. For example, let me open this. Here, if you go over here, what he's trying to do is, he's trying to do this. You are basically deploying this, okay, and for this what he says is you can do this, okay. So in that web backend you will have Tomcat application. In that load balancer you will have your HA proxy installed. So here you will work on two machines, one for HA proxy, the other one for basically your some Java application or any application for that matter. So how do you configure that? So if you get into this documentation, you try to tell you how to exactly basically do the stuff. Okay. If you come down, he will try to tell you this is how you do it. And if you want to use HA proxy as a load balancer for WordPress applications, right? Don't worry about WordPress. For us, it is a Tomcat application. Okay. How do I configure HA proxy? You have to go through these documentations, write out manual steps. For every step, find a resource, right? And whenever you are changing configuration files, template blindly. Don't even think of anything else. A configuration file marchalana template, any configuration file. If you are copying a static file from your cookbook underscore file, whenever you are trying to download a cookbook, download a file from somewhere over the internet, remote underscore file. So these are the things which you will come to know whenever you are working too much, whenever you work on multiple examples in basically these environments. You can try some examples in that MD file and you can get around with that. Okay. For the people who try this, I don't have an issue. Write your cookbook, raise a DevOps issue, and I'll help you out. But I don't want you to raise a DevOps issue saying that I want to solve the second problem. Can you just give me a cookbook? No, that's not happening. Yes? Okay. Fine then. Now let me tell you about the problem which I have. Okay. So the problem which I have right now is whenever we write cookbooks, right? Generally, our architectures in our real world or many applications which we do for the classic uh, Java, .NET, Node.js, Python, these kind of applications will have somewhat like a similar architecture. So what they have is they have a web server and they might have some middleware servers and they will have some database servers, right? So let me write the names over here. So a web, a middleware or an application server, whatever you call it, middleware or app servers, and then you might have databases. For all of these three, will we write the same cookbook? No way. We'll have three different cookbooks for, or at least we'll have three different recipes, even if we write the same cookbook. Yes or no? Yeah. And let us assume that you are developing a Java-based application, so your web server might be Apache, right? Your middleware server or an application server could be a Tomcat or a JBoss, and your database might be MySQL or Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server. If you're working on .NET based applications, you might have web and middleware configured into something called as IIS server. All right. If you're working on PHP based applications, you might be working on Apache or Nginx server. All right. If you're working on basically Python based applications, you might still have an Apache. You might have a Django or a Flask service which is running, and then you might basically have a database backend, right? And if you are working on Spring Boot, a Java way of running it, right? So then you might have a web application. Your middleware could be some Spring Boot installation, right? And then you just directly run the Spring Boot by executing a very simple command, which is java minus jar, whatever war file which you are running. So there are many ways of basically looking at these things. Yes or no? Now, let me tell you about the first problem. These are my servers, and I have a chef server over here. Okay. Assuming that you are writing a cookbook and you have written three cookbooks, one for web server, the other one for web server is your Apache or Nginx. Let us assume that we have written Apache and Nginx as two different cookbooks. I have two cookbooks, one for Apache and one for Nginx. And then in the middleware world, I have a Tomcat based deploy war, whatever we have written just now, a Tomcat 7 based cookbook. And then for a database, I have one more cookbook called as MySQL. Now, your team wants to run a deployment. So what will you do? For this node, your run list will contain Apache cookbook. For this, you will have a Tomcat cookbook. For this, you will have a MySQL, right? And what I will tell apart from this is on all of my servers, I need to have Git installed, tree installed, or there are some common things which you need to install. So totally, I have the following cookbooks. Let me write the cookbook names over here. In the chef server, whatever I'm writing is cookbook names. I have cookbooks called as Apache, Nginx, and Tomcat. Let us assume my cookbook's name is Tomcat 7, right? And then I have MySQL and Postgres. So these are my cookbooks, right? So, and apart from that, I have a cookbook called as utils cookbook, which will install utilities, something like message of the day, some basic user configuration which your company wants. Utils has to be installed on all of the machines, right? And this machine's run list will contain utils, and over here utils, and then Tomcat. Over here utils and MySQL. Good. Two cookbooks which I have to add to my run list. Wonderful. But the problem which I have is I have approximately 100 servers each for everything. I have 100 web servers, 100 middleware servers, and 100 database servers. Now, one of your architect comes and tells you that there is a new cookbook that is added, which is called as, let us assume it is called as Docker. Or let me not put Docker, let me put something else. I don't want to confuse you. What is the other thing which we might require on all of the Linux machines? So, something like syslog. This is a log server, right? And he's trying to tell that on all the machines you need to have this cookbook. So what is that you need to do now? Go into 300 machines, right? 100 for each. Change the run list of every machine and add log server to the bottom. Is this sounding like a better idea? Yeah. So how do I solve this? That is one problem. So what is the problem now? The first problem which I am seeing over here is managing multiple nodes, run lists separately. Yes or no? If it is one machine, two machines, we can go ahead and we can change the run list. Wonderful. But I am speaking about hundreds of machines. I am speaking about too many machines. It becomes very difficult for me to manage this. Am I clear on this? Okay. This is the first problem. Now let me speak about a second problem. So when I say 100 servers, which I have for web, out of which, let us assume that 25 are production servers. 25 are production servers or prod servers, right? 25 are dev servers. 25 are Qt servers or QA servers, right? So you have different environments. Now your developer or your architect comes and tells that, yeah, now you have Tomcat 7. We want to move away from Tomcat 7 and I want you to do something for Tomcat 9. You are going to deploy the same application, but remember you have installed Tomcat 7. But my latest version has to be installed on Tomcat. So what is that you need to do? You need to change the cookbook. Now let us assume that you change the cookbook and upload the cookbook. What happens? The upload will be applied to all the 100 servers and your production might break because your production is still supposed to be on Tomcat 7, whereas only your dev environment is supposed to be on Tomcat 9. So how do you solve these problems? So whenever I change the cookbook, I know that I am changing versions, right? So how can I handle version specific nodes? So for example, for all the production servers, I need to apply my cookbook, which is of version 1.0.0. For all of my dev servers, I will go to 1.1.1 or something like that, whatever new version of a cookbook which I have. Yes or no? So two problems understood, or do we have any problem in understanding this? If you don't understand this, please speak about it right now, because if this problem is clear, I'll try to tell you what the solution for it. Is this problem clear to everyone? The first problem is I have to manage run list for multiple machines, and whenever the change happens, it is very difficult for me to change it by logging in into every machine and then basically changing the run list. Yes or no? And the second problem which I have is, even though my run list is same, I might use the same machine for different environments. So whenever I make any new change, the new change should not be applied to the production environment. It should be applied only to some environments, right? So how do I basically, if these two problems are clear, I can tell you what is the solution for it. Think about it and tell me whether it is clear or not. ఈ రెండు ప్రాబ్లంలు అందరికీ అర్థమైనయా? Yes? For the people on the web, is the problem statement clear? What is the problem with step 1 and what is the problem with step 2 which you are seeing over here? Second problem is, let us assume that you have written a cookbook for Tomcat 7. Your architect, and you have applied it to all the servers, and in that servers you have production servers, you have dev servers, you have QA servers. Your architect comes and tells to you that now you need to write a new version of Tomcat, right, which is Tomcat 9, right? But we will go to the production later, but first I want you to prepare a dev environment for me. I want it to be applied only to the dev specific things, right? But you are changing your same cookbook, you are not writing a new cookbook. So whenever you change a new cookbook and upload the version, what happens to the chef in the next half an hour during the next convergence? All the servers, let it be production, let it be staging, let it be pre-prod, everything will be applied with the Tomcat 9. But we don't want that to happen. Yes or no? Right? So with every change, what is that we do in a cookbook? Are we changing the version number? Yeah. So I need to have some sort of restriction based on version number in the second stuff. In the first stuff, what I need to have is maintaining the run list for every machine is cumbersome. It is difficult. So how do I manage that? Are these two problem statements clear? Yeah. So Santosh, is it clear now? Yeah. Okay then. So since you said that this problem is clear, for this chef has a concept called as role. In chef, what is the role? Role is a way to manage run list. Am I clear on this? In chef, role is nothing but a way to manage a run list. And for this, we have something called as environment. So environment is a way to put restrictions on cookbook versions. Am I clear? So all these days, what is that we were trying to do? We were adding a run list, right? We had something called as run list for a node, and in the run list, what is that we were adding? We were adding recipes. But from now on, we will not add recipes, but our run list will contain just. And what is a role? Role is nothing but recipes to be applied. Now, all the 100 web servers, I will define a role called as a web server role, and I will apply to all the 100 machines a role called as web server. Now remember, I had a case where I need to add something called as syslog. So I don't change the run list of every machine. I go to this role and I will tell that, okay, this role was 3 recipes. From now on, this role is no longer 3 recipes, but it will become 4 recipes because I'm adding something called as syslog. So you are changing the role once and it gets applied to all the applicable stuffs. And in your run list of your nodes, you are no longer having recipes. You will have something called as roles. So role is nothing but the specified order of recipes to be applied. Okay. Now to make it much clearer. Okay. So let me go over here. What was your run list? Utils and Apache. So what I'll do is I'll create a role called as web server, and web server role is equivalent to recipes. What are the recipes? Utils and Apache. Right? And now I'll go to the 100 servers, and 100 servers run list will have something called as role of web server. Role of web server role, whatever it is. So 100 servers will have now in the run list something called as role of. Yes. Now for 100 servers, what will happen? Utils will be running and Apache will be running. Now your architect comes and tells you saying that on all the 100 servers, I need syslog. So you don't need to change 100 servers. You just go to the role and you say that this role which was utils and Apache is now going to be utils, Apache, and now what happens? On the 100 servers during next convergence, syslog is added. Is it not a better idea? So this is what a role is. We'll do that role. Don't worry about it. Yeah? So am I clear on this? Okay. Now what we do is environment. In environment, what we say is I have 3 environments. I have QA environment, I have dev environment, and I have prod environment. Yes. And in prod environment, what I try to tell is my QA environment will have cookbooks with the following restrictions. My Apache cookbook will be equal to version 1.0.0. My dev cookbook also will be same thing. Yeah, and my prod is also this. And then I'll have one more cookbook which is about Tomcat. My Tomcat cookbook also will be equivalent to version 1.0.0. Okay. When I say Tomcat 1.0.0, it is about Tomcat 7. Now what you have done is your architect comes and tells that you need to change the installation of Tomcat from Tomcat 7 to Tomcat 9. So for that, what you have done is you have changed the cookbook version, and whenever you are uploading your second cookbook, you have uploaded a cookbook version called as 1.1.0. Right? Now what I'll do is I'll not change everything. I'll just go to the dev environment and I will say that dev environment should have Tomcat version which is greater than or equals to 1.0, or assuming my Tomcat's latest version is 1.0.1. Let us assume this is the version number. So what I'll try to tell is my Tomcat's version is pessimistically equivalent to. What it means is in versioning, whatever is your last digit in 1.0.0, this is the last digit, right? Yes, the last zero is considered to be a minor version. So as it comes to the left side, it becomes a major version. So in 1.0.0, the last zero which you are seeing is a minor version. So whenever you put that, what you are trying to tell is I am okay with any version as long as it is 1.0.x. I am okay with any version which is as long as it is 1.0.x. And remember, you have put that only for dev environment, but not for the other two environments. And you have uploaded a new version of a cookbook. Where it gets applied? Only to the dev environment. And environment is applied to every node. So environment we apply to the node, role we apply to the run list of the node. So what is happening? Every node will have a environment, right? And every run list will have a role. So whenever you upload a new cookbook, what is that you do? You basically change this configurations. And remember, in this case, when I upload a new version of a cookbook, am I impacting my QA servers? Am I impacting my dev servers? No, because my QA server says that take only the Tomcat cookbook which has version 1.0.0, and our 1.0.0 is finished. We are not going to make any changes. And it is not possible for you and me to make changes on a cookbook which is already applied. Yes or no? Whenever you do Burks upload, what is happening? If the version is already present, it says that since it is already present, I am skipping this version. Yeah. So is it safer now? Two things, right? But is there any environment already in these machines? Right? Is there any environment already in the machines? In Chef, for every machine, you will definitely have an environment, whether you set it or don't set it. So let us look into this. Are you seeing over here? So what are the environment which we have? What are the environment which we are having? Default environment. So even if you don't set the environment, every node your Chef server tries to set to an environment which is called as default. So what we do is we create three more environments: one for dev, one for QA, and one for prod. Is it making sense? Yes. So conceptually, do we understand what it is now? What is environment and what is role? Am I clear on this? Yes. Using roles, what is that I do? I define run list. Run list at one common place, right? So basically, if you go into the policy right now, we were just worrying about cookbooks. Now, if you see, we have roles, we have environment. We'll come back to what is databags, right? And we know what the clients are already. Do we know what is the client? Node. It is nothing but a node. Yes. So roles and environments. We have to define some roles and we have to define specific environments because there is already an environment. There is already some environment. Are we clear on this? Yeah. Okay. I have to speak about one concept. I'm not sure whether this is the right time to speak about it. No, I'll not speak it right now. It is slightly misunderstood concept we have something called as attribute precedence. Okay, it becomes difficult. Okay, so what we'll do is, let us do one thing. Let us create an environment, a role, and attribute precedence in our next class. All right, our next class is tomorrow, same time. Let us have a class from 6 to 8 tomorrow. There is no need for 6 to 9. Let us have a class from 6 to 8, and let us take this stuff, because I don't want to start it at this moment. It will be difficult, because you have to understand that a attribute value, whatever we were writing, right, we were always writing default. So what does the default means, right? Can I change the variable value? Because the whole concept of variable is, you define a variable because you can change the value. Now you are changing the value at only one place, which is attribute file. What are the other places where you can change the attribute file? And how can you create these environments, and how can you create these roles? So that is an agenda of our next discussions. Once we finish this, we'll be looking at supermarket, right? And we'll be discussing about something called as uh, auto bootstrapping. You don't want to bootstrap the nodes by executing knife node bootstrap command. If that is the case, how do you do bootstrapping, right? And then at the last, we'll look at, if I have to bootstrap a Microsoft Windows server, what is it, and what are the packages which you are supposed to use on Windows. So this is going to be the areas which we are going to cover, right, in the next few days, right? We'll have our DevOps classes till Wednesday. Okay, with respect to the chef, right? From Thursday, you will have Linux classes, right? I'm not sure how many of, I have said it in the classroom earlier, because I am going to vacation on 13th, 14th, and 15th is what I've basically said. So I'll not be available over the next weekend. You will have Linux classes during that time. Yeah, so I'm not available on 13th, 14th, 15th. All right, so we will start Jenkins from Tuesday of the next week. So this is the point. So I'm not in town on 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. I'm going on a vacation. Too much of time. I have not taken a break. I have to, and I cannot take the break during this time, unfortunately, because my peers in the USA are uh, on leave, and if something, I have to maintain some DevOps pipelines, and if something breaks, I am the only person which is available, because we have other person in our team who is maintaining this, but he's a Catholic. He's like uh, religiously bound to be present from 25th to 1st in his hometown. So I don't have an option, so I have to stay back. So I cannot take the break during the last week. So for me, this is the only time, and my leaves are expiring. So that's why I had to take this break. And you will have Linux classes during that time. Yeah. So till 13th, from till 12th is when we'll have chef classes, right? And we have to cover about how to write environment, how to write role, right? And basically the rest of the concepts, like the chef auto bootstrap, right? Or basically the other thing is supermarket cookbooks, and how to work on Windows servers, right? These are the areas which are pending, and we'll be doing that in the next 4 classes which we have, right? Okay, then. So that's what I had, and if you have any further questions, you can ask me. You will get the link. Yes. Mm. Pardon me. Nothing. No, no. It is logical thing. See, if you see, it is not nothing to do with performance, because what is the role at the end of the day? It is run list. Yes, logically role is nothing but a run list defined at a common place. If you look at role, so I have a run list which is defined at some other place, so it will not be impacting me on performance. And when I speak of environments, you will be getting only the cookbooks which you are interested in, not the other versions of the cookbooks. So you will not have any. It is nothing but one select query which runs on the Postgres database before it is applied to your system. It is not any impact with respect to performance. No. Can you please explain roles and environments briefly? We'll do it tomorrow, right? Anyway, we have to start tomorrow. But tomorrow morning, I'll start again with this discussion. But remember, I want you to understand these two problems. And even if you don't understand what a role or what an environment is, two problems which I have said, right? When I have many machines, and if I want to change anything in the run list, I have to change in every machine. That is the first problem, right? And I want to upload the new version of the cookbook, and I don't want it to apply on some machines. So how do I guard it? So these are the two problems. Just define those problems and understand those problems. And anyway, I'll start again from the same discussion. We'll be creating roles, we'll be creating environments, and let us create three environments: Dev, QA, and Prod, with one Red Hat and one Ubuntu machine, and let us try to upload 2 or 3 cookbooks with some dummy data around it. Okay, to demonstrate this feature. All right. Can you write the? Do you want me to write it on a notepad? Do you want my signature there? Can I get an S3 link? Yeah. Please send an S3 link of that GitHub. A link పంపించండి అందరికి. Game of Life. Yes, Warfare. ఆల్రెడీ ఇంతకు ఇప్పుడు కొత్తగా వచ్చిన వాళ్ళు ఉంటారు లేదన్నా అలా జ్ఞాపక శక్తి తగ్గిపోయిన ఉంటారు. యా, without management console. Yes, you can. We will because we'll be looking at knife command lines, right? But if you go to the chef server, right, you go to the enterprise, that I will be discussing about everything, because we have to delete 2 nodes. If you see, that's the point where I'll start my discussion. And we have to create environments. Our environment creation, environment update is not going to be from UI, it is going to be completely from CLI. So that's where. But we'll be using a command line tool called as knife. If you remember, కత్తిని ఒకసారి ఫస్ట్ లో ఎప్పుడో వాడాం, మళ్ళీ వాడలేదు, చాలా రోజులు అయింది, right? So let us use that knife again. Yeah. Is environment like collection of specific nodes? No, collection of specific version of cookbooks. It has nothing to do with nodes. Yeah. Environment is like a party. During election time, you are bound to be to some party. Default is nota, right? Whenever you don't want to vote for anyone, right? Okay, so Rehan, writing it on a notepad is too much nonsense, but let me try to tell you. So I am on vacation on 13th, 14th, 15th, right? So you will have Linux classes starting from 13th to 16th. Yeah. So 17th you will not have a class. 18th you are all coming and we start Git. So that's what our plan is. From 18th December we are going to start a discussion on Git. Yeah. Okay. After Git we will go to the Maven and then to Jenkins. Git అనగానే అంత ఆశ్చర్యపోయి చూసారేంటి? గిట్ కావాలండి, గిట్ లేకపోతే ఏ పని అవ్వదు, because that is the starting place of all of our DevOps journey. Yes. Okay. I am not sure, but I'll tell you one thing. Yesterday I was trying to we had some basic idea, right? So 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th, no classes. No sir, no, I am on vacation. So you might not have heard it correctly. You don't have my classes, but it doesn't mean that there are no DevOps classes. You will have Linux classes. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what you are trying to work on is I'm trying to work on a project to automate DevOps. Yeah, I'm being very serious about it. So that's a basic idea. I'm not going to get into the further details, but the whole idea is I want code to write whatever you are doing. That is what I am working on personally. So for example, you give me the Git, I'll give you the workflow. Are you understanding the whole stuff? You give me your code base, I'll give you a file, just use it in your Jenkins, your DevOps automation pipeline is done. This is what I'm working on my personal interest, nothing to do with that. So this is something on these lines, and then towards zero touch. Zero touch is you basically you get an issue, you say that I am fixing, and whenever you say I am fixing, a branch automatically creates in the Git branch, and you have to just pull that branch, right? Or whatever it is, something like this, on these lines. So there are many people who are doing this, by the way. I am not the only person. Many people who are doing this, right? So will it be a success, will it be a failure? That's the different story, but people are trying to do this. Okay, now look at, we are having problems with kitchen converge itself. And what the world is trying to do is, you give me your git server, or you tell me what is your project's technology, I will define a pipeline, whether you are using Jenkins or whether you are using anything. I'll give you a simple file, go ahead and import it in Jenkins, you get your DevOps automated pipeline created for you. That is where, yeah, it might not be a reality very soon, but that is something which people are started working on. And by the way, this area is called as chat ops, right? Yeah. So industry is moving very, very fast. Yeah. So you have to be with the same pace, otherwise you get somewhere in the background, right? So in this, don't I need DevOps? You need, but you are doing one level of more automation in terms of DevOps. All right. So see, that's the pace which with world is moving. All right, and we have to catch up to that pace, and that will not be a reality for the next 3 or 4 years at least. All right, but world is moving there. No one wants to do the repetitive tasks. Okay, so that's what I am personally working. And if I, with my limited time, if I have these much kind of ambitions, think of the people who graduate from IIT and who don't want to work in any organizations, and they want to build up some project, they want to build up on something on the startup. If they discuss, or if they think that this is something which they can start on, that's how it. So for example, I said we have used something called as Vagrant, remember? So Vagrant was a very simple team of engineers who know nothing but Ruby. Now if you see what these guys have built is, these guys have started a company called as HashiCorp. They have Vagrant, they have Packer, they have Terraform, they have Vault, right? They have Nomad, all of this in Ruby. Okay, and Docker was also a very small organization. So you have to be very, very fast and quick in learning. And we cannot learn syntaxes, remember that. We can only understand the pattern, and that is what I try to teach in the classroom. But most of the people try to see my names, my variable names, deploy, var, tomcat. No, please don't do that, right? So the reason why I tell is, if you know the approach, right, at some point you can work on any configuration management tool. So for example, you have learned all of this, and your company, you join the company where they're using Puppet. Man, my hands are broken. I've become like, I don't remember that actor in Sholay who doesn't have the two hands, right? So that's how you, that's not it. But if you understand what we have done in Ansible, what we have done in Chef, or for the people who have started from Chef, whatever we have done in Chef till now, what is that we are doing? What is the major concept over here? Linux commands. For every command you will have something called as resource, and you will convert it to it, right? In Ansible, what we do is, we take Linux commands, we convert each Linux command into something called as module. In Puppet, what we do is, we take every Linux command and convert it into something called as Puppet resource. In PowerShell DSC, what we do is, we take every Windows command and try to write a PowerShell DSC. Now if you analyze this pattern and apply it to any configuration management tool, it is exactly the same. Tomorrow if you are asked to work on Salt, in Salt also you might have something like Ansible module. The only thing which you can ask Google is equivalent of Ansible module in Salt. That's it. That will give you a fair introduction. So I want you to learn anything in this much generalized way. Am I clear on that? Yes. And whenever you get any failures, the only way which you need to know is, where are my logs? That should be your first question. Get into the logs, understand what is the error, and if you copy the major error and put it on the Google, there will be, you will get to the exact solution. But if you try to write a generic error, you will get 1001 resolutions, because you have not asked for a specific problem, right? So for the people who are new to the Google, మీ కడుపులో నొప్పి అలాంటి ఏమైనా వచ్చినప్పుడు గూగుల్ని అడగండి, ఏమవుతుందో. You got cancer అంటారు. I'm very, if you got a small stomach ache, and if you are worried, and if you say that I'm getting stomach ache, can you just describe the symptoms? So it could say that you might have pancreatic cancer. right? That is because my query is wrong. You have to give more symptoms about to Google. Google is not something which understands something like that, right? So whenever we are learning anything, please don't stick to examples, but stick to approach, and take my approach and try something else. And if you have looked into our stack in our class, we have installed something called as lamp stack, right, lamp. And there is something called as lemp, which is about nginx server, right? Try doing that. Yeah, because as long as you have Linux commands, you have nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about, right? And we have done the Java based application deployment. Now do you take the Node.js application deployment? Node.js application deployment is no different. You need to write a Node.js application, Node.js, install Node.js, and after you install Node.js, you need to copy a JavaScript files into some folder, and then you might need to execute a command like npm start or node app.js or npm serve. You will have some commands. You have to execute that command. That's it. This is the whole idea. That's what I'm trying to tell into. Don't just stick to the examples. That's the whole reason why I have shown you all of the 12 or 13 examples, which are about too many different things. Look at them and try to think about the resources. That's how you will come to know the whole idea.